Hey y'all, it is Kenya Denise here. It has been a minute, I know. It is life, like life just be lifing, y'all. And so I don't know, I'm not even about to get on here and be like, oh yeah, I'm back. Like, 'cause I take so many long stretches of like breaks. And I think it's because I just really have like a love-hate thing with social media. But as you guys can see in the title, I will be sharing my story about how I lost out on $1,000 in the beginning of my business. And so I just really am praying that this video, you find encouragement in your entrepreneurial journey. If you're an esthetician, whatever it is that you are, going into business for by faith, I just pray that this would really just help you and encourage you to just really trust God through the process, because look, it's a process and it's hard, y'all. Like, entrepreneurship is really hard and it's not easy. And sometimes just like, am I really built for this? But still got my lights on, right? So y'all, so let me take y'all back to 2020. Okay, we all know what year this was for everybody. And so I think I'm just going to, what I would like to do is just really kind of continue sharing bits and pieces of my journey, because I think it's really important to really talk about a lot of the things that, you experience in entrepreneurship. And also just doing this by faith. Like, I'm literally walking this thing out by faith, and there have been a lot of challenges, but there have also been just a lot of beautiful opportunities that God has, given me and has opened the door for me. And so this is just one bump in the road that I had and that I learned from, and honestly still learning from. Let's just be honest here. So 2020, it was a tough year, guys. It was. We all know that. And so during 2020, I was working at the med spa. I believe I shared that part with you all in one of my previous videos. And yeah, so I was working at the med spa in Chicago, and about June, when all of like the rioting was going, like just a lot of the racial tension happening, it was a lot, it was a lot of just high emotions, anxiety, fear for people. Like, it was chaotic, you know what I'm saying? In Chicago, it was cutting up in the streets, okay? They were cutting up. And so, this was just such an interesting time, I think, in history, that we had all that going on. And so outside of that, here's little old me working at the med spa, and I'm really starting to feel this tug, or like this nudge, by God, Holy Spirit, to leave the med spa. So I ended up leaving, and it was a really, really difficult time. Like, it took me a whole week to leave, because mind you, the owner and I, we definitely like had we grew like a relationship or whatever. And so, it was just like, we became like friends, like we became cool. And so it was just very hard to just kind of like walk away, because I was only like employee that she had too on top of that. So it was very hard to leave. Like, I felt bad, but I also just felt like it was God just telling me to like leave, and I'm just like, okay, I guess this is time for me to start my business. Like, this has to be it, like, I'm like, this is the time to start my business. So I ended up leaving, and maybe like a couple weeks after that, it was July, because I remember, and I purchased my LLC. Like, I'm doing the paperwork, y'all. Like, I'm doing everything I need to do, okay? Like, I'm doing what I need to do to get this business up and running, okay? And mind you, though, we're still in the middle of this, virus going on, am I right? So anyways, it still was just up in the air as far as just like, you know, how are we going to stop, you know, the transmission of this thing? Like we're wearing masks, all of that. But it was like we were still able to work at that time when I was still working at the med spa. I started looking for salon suites. So I was like, you know, visiting some places, but I knew I wanted to be in the South Loop, y'all. Like, just remember South Loop because that's important. I wanted to be in the South Loop. And so I had hit up this spot. I'm not going to drop the name because honestly, they did do me petty. And so I don't want to drop the name just because like that was just my experience, you know, whatever. But they just have like a lot of suites in like buildings, you know, just think of just salon suites. Okay. So I went to go check it out and I visited one location. I visited the one in South Loop. I'm like, this has to be it, right? So I'm there, you know, I went to go see this place probably a couple times. You know, I went to go talk to the girl who was like the leasing person, whatever her job was. And so it came down to like, okay, it's time for you to come in and come sign the lease. So y'all, when I tell you like, I was hesitant. This is where the lesson comes in, okay? I was so hesitant about signing on that lease, y'all. Like, I was going there. I was excited at first. Like, I just really felt like I felt deep in my heart like this had to be the move. Like, this had to be the move because, you know, it's just like, okay, well, what else am I gonna do? Like, if I'm not, you know, God, you're not leading me to go work anywhere else, so this must be the time for me to start my own business, right? So I just had no peace, but I'm just like, well, what else am I gonna do? Like, if I'm not gonna work nowhere, like, I have to do this. But I had no peace. I'm sorry I keep like repeating that, but y'all, I really had no peace. And so I was like fighting with myself to like conjure up this peace, you know, conjure up the peace of God. And it was not piecing, okay? The peace was not piecing. And I remember the day that I stepped foot into the salon suite building and it was someone else who was there who was going to give me the contract signed lease. And y'all, when I stood in that room with that man, I did not feel good about it. I did not feel good about it. Even just his energy was off with me. His energy was so off with me, y'all. Like, I felt something so off about him. I felt something so off about all of it. And so, you know, but I'm just like, God, like, what else am I gonna do? Like, this is literally it. Like, what else can I do? So I ended up signing the lease. And y'all, when I tell y'all, like, I stood in that room, like I stood in the suite that I signed the lease for. And I'm just like, God, give me your peace. I literally said that out of my mouth, y'all. I was like, God, give me your peace. He did not give me peace. He did not give me peace. And I felt like how I felt in the video that I believe I told y'all about back when God paid for my esthetician program. I felt that same feeling of like I did something wrong. And so I left out of there, y'all, and I just like, it was like an overwhelming feeling of just like, what mistake did I just make, right? So I left. I drove like around the corner, y'all, and I stopped and I cried. I literally cried in my car because I'm like, God, what else am I supposed to do? Like, why are you not giving me peace? Like, I literally sat in my car like, God, why aren't you giving me peace? Why aren't you giving me any peace? Like, I was so upset. Like, why don't I have your peace right now, God? Like, this does not feel good. This doesn't feel good right now. So I went home. And I believe it was maybe like the next day, y'all, like the next day, the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, she put out like, you know, the statement that all facial services were shut down. So estheticians could not do facial services. You could not do any services where you had to remove the mask. I just signed a lease for a salon suite. I just signed, and I think I gave them like 3 weeks of rent. I don't remember how much it was, y'all, but it was over $1,000 that I gave these people, okay? And I mean, at that time, you know, like this is literally like money that I just have just from working, you know, from the med spa. And so, you know, I tried to ask them for that money back, and they were like, I mean, the owner of the salon suites, she did not want to give it to me. She kept my money. She didn't even respond back to me. Pretty much the response from the other girl, the prior girl that I was talking to, was pretty much like, well, it's a pandemic. And so just as much as you lost, we also lost. But I didn't even have a week in the salon. Like, I literally didn't even have a week in there. I didn't even bring a client in. I literally was in there for like a couple of days, y'all, after I signed that lease. Like, literally, they could have given me my money back, you know? So I was upset. I was upset. And when I tell y'all I was upset, like, I went into a depression type of upset, like, because I was filled with so much condemnation. Like, I allowed the enemy to be in my head. I allowed myself to get in my head. Like, I beat myself up about that decision because I knew I did not have the peace of God. And I still made the decision to move forward and sign that lease. And I cannot blame God, because for whatever reason, it was not the timing. And looking back now, 2022, looking back, I totally understand why it wasn't that time. It was not time for me to start that. But I held on to that, y'all. But it was like being in 2020, no one knew what was going to come out of 2020. No one knew what was going to be next. You know, like, I literally could not understand what was going on. Like, I in that moment, I did feel disappointed by God. I felt like, God, why would you tell me to leave just for me to, you know, like, just be out of work for 9 months? So I didn't work for 9 months, y'all. Like, but it was like the grace of God was on me. You know, every need I had was met. Like, you know, I was still living at home. And so, like, it wasn't like I was out on the street. Like, God definitely, you know, took care of me. But looking back, I understand why I did not start my business when I did. For one, you know, we're in the pandemic. And then also, two, you know, I was not going to be emotionally and mentally in the game for it, because not even like a few months after that, I lost a really close friend of mine, like childhood friend of mine. And that really, 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 I'm still sad about that one. And then not even long after that, one of my aunts passed, you know? So it was like literally one thing after another. And it was just so much going on. I was not mentally in the game to be starting a business. And looking back on that time, I know that I should have, you know, really utilized that time to really spend more time with God, you know, but it was just so hard to trust God in that season, y'all. Like, it was so hard. It was so hard, y'all. But it's like God's grace is so sufficient and good. Like, even in the midst of me, like, you know, really struggling with my faith, you know, God still came through, and I had my business the following year, 9 months later in March. Like, I opened up, right? And I was able to take clients, and I'm in the South Loop. So God had already had, you know, something prepared for me. And so I actually am in a salon. I actually am renting a suite in a makeup and beauty lounge in the South Loop that I've actually known the owner since 2016. And so I reached out to her to see if she had a room available, and she did. And so the confirmation, though, about this, y'all, like, this may not seem like a big deal to nobody, but it was a big deal to me. And the key that she gave me, like, the initials were KB. And those are my initials. Denise is my middle name. Those are my initials. So, like, when I saw that, like, I honestly was like almost in shock. Like, I couldn't even like react, because I'm just like, wait, God, like, am I like, is this okay? You know, like I'm already like a little hesitant. Like, is this really the move right now? Is this what we're doing? You know, like I was nervous. I was, because like the following year, not too long ago, it was traumatic for me to experience that and then just go through the mental, you know, up and downs and stuff of just that time period. And yeah, it was only 9 months, but it felt way longer than that. Like, oh, it felt longer than that. But the lesson that I learned and that I really want to, you know, share with you all is that we have to trust God with the plans for our businesses and just our lives. Like, y'all, this is something I'm really just learning still. And not that I necessarily made like any major decisions that big where I am like, oh my God, you know, why did I do this? But it's like even just the little decisions where you still need to just consult God. Like, we have to consult God about everything. Like, God, is this really the move you want me to make? Should I be investing in this? Should I be purchasing this? Is this someone I should be connected to? Should I be here? Should I be there? Like, God, where do you want me to be? And these are questions that I need to really challenge myself, continue to sit with God with and wait on his timing, you know? And so I definitely was impatient. I definitely was, you know, really lacking faith. But, you know, the word says that even when we are faithless, God is still faithful, you know? And it's not like I walked away from the faith. Like, no, I just was struggling to see beyond what was going on in my circumstances. And, you know, God is just so good for that. Like, he is really just so good. And I've been needing to share this because I don't know, I feel like it just keeps coming it just keeps coming to my mind. And so I know it's just something I just needed to share. And so I hope that it does encourage you. I hope that you do find some type of encouragement out of this. I'm still learning to literally give it all to God. And so that's something that we just have to continue doing, y'all. You know, like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat and act like, you know, like I'm not still learning certain things about, you know, just hearing God's voice. But I know when I got peace and I know when I don't have peace. And when I don't have peace, I know that like this is God telling me something, you know? So like we can't ignore those nudges, those kind of urgencies that are from God of just like, wait, stop. We need to sit with this and really see if this is what I'm leading you to do, you know? And so that's really all I got for y'all. But I just really just wanted to just share this because it's just so important that we just really take time to really listen to the voice of God and know when he's telling us to wait and know when he's telling us to go. And so, you know, it takes just like active obedience and just learning and getting back up, you know, and remembering, for there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So we do not need to walk around in guilt and shame because Jesus Christ died for that shame. He died for that guilt. And so we don't have to walk around like shameful and guilty and all of that. Like, he died for us and has given us extensive, abundant grace and mercy and love. And he wants us to keep going and growing in him as we seek him. And so that's all I got for y'all. I will definitely be updating you guys more on my journey because I know this is what I'm supposed to do. So I hope that you guys got a little nugget out of this. I really like when y'all comment on my videos because it just lets me know y'all are still here. But other than that, you guys, I will see you guys next time.